Hi, I'm Julia from Pegasus Spiele. We are happy to be here at Virtual Tabletop Gaming Live. Today, John is going to show you some of our new games for 2020 and next year. Let's start with Celtic, the Undo series, and Kitchen Rush. Then we will continue with Bonfire, the new game by designer Stefan Feld, the Hansa Teutonica Big Box, and the Dwarves Big Box.
Celtic is a family strategy game set during the Iron Age. You play as Celtic families fighting for influence in the region. You must send your family members out to collect goods and make trade relationships to win points. Your family members are represented by these stacking plastic tokens, and on your turn you can move a stack of them along the road 1 or 2 spaces. You're trying to get your family members into spaces that supply the goods you need on your goal cards. For example, once you have a token on a cow, sheep and fish space, you have completed this card, which is worth 20 points. Once you complete a goal card, you have to pay for it by returning a family member from each space to the village, which is why it's so useful to move your family members in groups, so that once some of them go home to the village, you still have members out in the Meadowlands to score other goals. The interesting twist of the game is that whenever a player moves their family members, every other player in that location can travel with them if they want. So you'll expand out quickly from the village by moving on everyone else's turns, which keeps all the players invested in what's happening throughout the game. The other way to get points is by collecting trade cards. When your family members reach a trade location, you can return one or more of them to the village to take the same number of trade cards from that space. At the end of the game, you'll score points for having a diversity of trade cards. You arrange them by quantity and get 1 point for each card of your biggest collection, 2 points for each card in your second biggest collection, and so on. But the game only lets you score a number of trade cards of one type equal to the number of goal cards you completed. So you must split your focus between completing goals and collecting trade cards. Celtic is a breeze to learn with quick moving turns. It's suitable for ages 8 and up, and it plays 2 to 4 players in 45 to 60 minutes. Undo, Weaving Fate Anew are a series of story-driven games in which you must change the course of fate to stop someone's death. The story starts with their death. Treasure Fever takes place in the Yucatan jungle in 1952. A woman has jumped out of a plane holding an ancient relic. She tries to pull the cord of her parachute, but it won't open as she hurtles towards the ground. You must work together to change history and stop this tragedy from happening. You do that by jumping back in time to brief moments in the woman's life that led to her death. The backs of the cards tell you when and where they take place. You choose one to visit, then read the story on the card. You'll learn about her life, gaining clues to why she died. As you reveal fragments of the mystery, your group must come up with theories and fill in the gaps with your imagination. Was she murdered? Was it an accident? How can you stop it from happening? Each card gives you the chance to change the past, but will you choose the option that saves her life? You reveal the result and find out if your actions helped or made things worse. At the end of the game, you will add up the points that you've received and see if your score is enough to save her life and win the game. You can learn more from these clue cards that give you vital information about people and objects connected to the story. But choose wisely because you can only look at 4 of them. Each Undo box contains a standalone story. The other new story available now is Forbidden Knowledge, which is inspired by a short story by H.P. Lovecraft. The story begins with a man stood in a cemetery looking into an open grave. He's on the phone to a friend who is telling him to run away. Then suddenly he hears a disembodied voice that tells him his friend is dead. The man starts laughing hysterically before dropping dead. You will travel back through 1920s Arkham, Massachusetts to unravel the mystery and save his life. And once you've completed those, there are 3 other stories in the series. Curse from the Past, which takes you to ancient Egypt, Blood in the Gutter, set in 1920 Chicago, and Cherry Blossom Festival in modern-day Japan. Later this year, you can try to rewrite history by stopping a bomb from going off on New Year's Eve in the upcoming story 600 Seconds. With each game, the deck of cards teaches you the rules in 2 minutes, and then you get straight into the story. It's a game for 2 to 6 players, ages 10 and up, and will take between 45 and 90 minutes. Once you're finished, the game can easily be reset and played by another group. Kitchen Rush is a cooperative game about running a restaurant together. Your goal is to keep your customers happy in a race against time. Each restaurant shift is played against a 4-minute timer, and in that time you need to seat patrons, take orders, collect ingredients, and cook meals. You all play simultaneously, and you'll need to coordinate your actions to get everything done. You take actions by placing your sand timer in that part of the restaurant. If you go to reception, you can welcome 2 new patron cards to the dining room. Then another player could put their timer in the dining room to take an order, putting it by their player board. Once you have an order, you need to send your timer to the storage room to collect the ingredients you need to put on the plate, and then send your timer to the oven to cook it. But every task takes time for your worker to complete, and you can't move the sand timer again until its sand has run out. So you need to share out the work between players to get it all done in time. When the shift is over, you check to see if you prepared the meals correctly to see if you won. To help teach you the rules, the game is broken up into scenarios that slowly introduce new elements to the experience. To start out in the restaurant business, you first open to your friends, serving them a simple menu. Then you introduce new ingredients, such as spices, which you have to get from the greenhouse. The tiny spice cubes are kept in a bag, which will slow you down as you fumble to take the right ones. In later scenarios, you'll be given more work to juggle, such as washing your dishes and going shopping to buy more ingredients. As the game gets harder, you have to communicate well with your teammates to coordinate actions, so that while you're cooking, someone else is making sure the storeroom has the ingredients you need. With the pressure of the timer, everyone's hands getting in the way of each other, and people shouting orders, it has a fun, frantic feel of working in a restaurant. The restaurant will expand, adding new sections to the board, and you'll have to manage finances, making sure you're making enough money from customers to pay your staff each shift. If you can't afford their wages, a sand timer will quit, making it even harder to work without them. The scenario system lets you find the difficulty level that's right for you. And if you want even more of a challenge, there are missions and events you can add in. Kitchen Rush is an exciting, energetic game for 2 to 4 players, ages 8 and up, that plays in 20 to 60 minutes, depending on scenario.
These 3 games are already available. Now let's have a look at some games that will be released later this year. Have fun with Bonfire, the new strategy game by designer Stefan Feld, which will be available by the end of September. We will also show you the Hansa Teutonica Big Box and My Farm Shop, both of which will be released later this year. Finally, we will have a look at the Dwarves Big Box, which will be available next year.
Bonfire is a strategy game from designer Stefan Feld. It's set on a dark planet which relies on bonfires as their source of light and warmth. But now they've been extinguished, and you play as gnomes trying to reignite them to score points. Your player board represents your city with 7 spaces for bonfires. Every turn you take 1 action by spending the corresponding action tile. The blue action lets you move your boat. The inner islands contain the task tiles you need to light bonfires. You pay a red action tile and the required resources to take a task and place it in your city. Later, when you have the items required for a task, you must take a turn to light the bonfire. It's worth points at the end of the game. You also get to place your novice in the High Council to receive a bonus. If you move to one of the outer islands, you can spend a white action tile to recruit a Guardian of the Light, placing it on your path. They can also be used to start a procession, moving your Guardians along the path outside your city and receiving a resource from where they land. To extend that path, you must take a green action, choosing a path tile from the board. The purple action lets you rotate the Great Bonfire, taking 2 items from where it points, either an action tile, a resource, or one of the portals. The portals are placed on your city in between paths and bonfires. You get extra points for having a lit bonfire next to the matching colour path, and more with a portal, but portals can only be built starting from the right of the city and paths from the left, so achieving it takes some careful planning. If you have a path connected to a bonfire via a portal, you can spend a white tile to move a Guardian of the Light through the portal to the bonfire for some big points. The brown action is for recruiting gnomes. Specialist gnomes give you an ongoing ability, such as being able to build portals in any order. Elder gnomes are worth points, for example, for every portal you have, but only when you take the card, so you should wait until it's worth scoring, but before another player grabs it. To get more action tiles, you need to add a new fate tile to your board. You get an action for each icon, and extra if you're able to connect up matching icons. The end game is triggered when a certain number of novices are in the High Council. All players get 5 more turns, but you can finish early to take a point bonus instead. Bonfire is a deep game with potential for many strategies. It plays 2 to 4 players in 70 to 100 minutes for ages 12 and up. The Hansa Teutonica Big Box is a new edition of the popular strategy game with all of its expansions in one box. The game is set in Germany during the Middle Ages. You play as merchants in the Hanseatic League, an alliance of guilds. Your goal is to improve your standing and gain the most prestige points to win the game. The core of the game is in competing to create trade routes between cities on the board. You can spend actions to place one of your traders or merchants along a route, but other players can compete for the same routes by spending an action to displace your trader and replace it with theirs. However, to do that, they have to weaken themselves by losing one of their pieces from their personal supply. And when they bump you off, you not only get to choose where to move your trader to, but you're allowed to add an extra piece to the board for free. So the game encourages you to block players by rewarding heavily when you get displaced. This gives the game some exciting player interaction as you fight back and forth over crucial parts of the board. When you claim a route, you can establish an office in one of the cities connected to it. Later on, when a trade route to your city is claimed, you will score points, no matter who claimed the route. In some cities, instead of building an office, you can improve one of the abilities on your player board. This can transform your turns by giving you more actions to take or making those actions stronger, such as being able to recruit more traders and merchants. This big box edition contains all 3 expansions available for the game. Britannia, which adds a map of Great Britain, the East expansion, which adds a map of Eastern Germany, as well as mission cards for the original map, and the 3rd expansion, Emperor's Favour, introduces special powers for players to buy. Hansa Teutonica is an award-winning strategy game that plays 3 to 5 players, ages 12 and up, in 45 to 90 minutes. My Farm Shop is a dice-rolling family game from designer Rudiger Dorn. Your goal is to make the most money by farming produce such as wool and milk, then sell it for the best price. You start the game with a humble farm, only able to make and sell small amounts, but each turn you will upgrade it to improve production. You roll 3 dice and choose one of them to buy the corresponding upgrade at the market, adding it to any of the fields in your farm. Now when you roll a 3, you will get milk and wool. Then you add together the numbers on the 2 remaining dice and activate that field. So if you're left with a 9, you'll produce a ball of wool, adding it to your farm shop. Every other player gets to activate that number field in their farm on your turn as well. If you have 11, you can sell 2 goods of any kind for 3 coins, moving yourself up on the score track. You can give yourself more options by spending a burlap bag token to alter the value of a die by 1 so that you can activate a different field. As the game goes on, the upgrades will get much better. For example, selling 2 eggs for 5 coins. The challenge is in expanding your farm so that it runs efficiently. If you take too many upgrades that only produce goods, you might end up filling up your shop with stuff and not being able to sell them all. If you roll a 7, you can improve a field by adding a sunflower to it. Now that there's a sunflower on number 5, it produces 2 honey when it gets activated instead of 1. The game gives you a tough choice each turn in how to pair the dice, as you decide between getting the upgrade you really want or activating the best field. But where you place your upgrades is crucial. You're most likely to roll 6, 7s and 8s, but you might not want to cover over and lose those actions. The game comes with 3 expansion modules that you can use to introduce more variety to the gameplay. The Jumpstart module gives you a new farm layout to start the game with. The Farmer module introduces special powers you can pay to use. And finally, there are goals you can race to complete before the other players. My Farm Shop is an easy game to get into. It has simple rules and takes 30 to 45 minutes to play. It combines the fun of dice rolling with some real tactical depth, and it plays 2 to 4 players ages 8 and up. The Dwarves is a cooperative adventure game based on the best-selling novel series by Marcus Heitz. This big box edition includes the original game and all of its expansions. The kingdoms of Girdlegard are under attack by orcs, trolls and Alfar. It's your duty to fight them off. You each take on the role of a dwarf, and you will travel around the map and battle with the evil troops to complete quests. It's up to you which quest to focus on. There are adventure quests which will grant you rewards when you complete them. For this one, you must travel to Blacksaddle and pass some skill tests, and you'll be rewarded with 2 equipment cards. To win the game, you have to complete all the scenario quests. And you don't have forever because with every turn you run out of time on the Doom track. But you mustn't forget about these threat cards. If you don't deal with them, they will make your situation a lot worse. You have to be careful not to let the evil forces overwhelm the board. If there are ever 5 troops in a space, they will perish the land. To move your dwarf through perished land, you must lose a health point, or move the Doom token, giving you less turns to win the game. To fight the evil troops, you roll dice equal to your dwarf's battle value. Every 4 or above you roll will defeat an orc, but to kill trolls you need at least a 5, and Alphars can only be killed with a 6. If you don't defeat a single troop in battle, you lose a health point, and if any of the player's dwarves die, you lose the game. To be successful, you need to work together, playing to each other's strengths. Boindil can roll 4 battle dice and re-roll them if he wants, and Bavragor can travel through perished land unharmed. The included Saga expansion introduces new quests inspired by the later novels in the series. The big box also includes 7 additional hero characters you can play as, and new scenario cards to give your stories a new beginning, middle and end. The Dwarves is an action-packed adventure game for 2 to 5 players for ages 10 and up, and plays in 60 to 90 minutes.
Thank you very much for your attention. We hope you had fun with the short overview of some of our new games. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to our Pegasus Spiele Global Facebook page to never miss any updates and announcements again. You can also check our library of online games, where we have many games ready for you to play online via Tabletopia. On our Discord server, you can always find other players. We from Pegasus Spiele wish you a lot of fun while playing and a great time at Virtual Tabletop Gaming Live.